What's up, everyone? Welcome to this new podcast that we're just developing. First episode, it's called Sermon on the Mount Podcast.
Yes, sir.
And so we got another podcast for you guys to add into your playlist and listen to, on your guys' way to school or anything like that. Today we are in the basement. This is David's.
It is not a murder mystery podcast.
Yeah, it's
to
not
clarify.
about that. No, it's actually, talking about how we can help you in your journey because, we've seen society and we know how tough it can be, and in general growing up, through the questions that we have in life, and we know that God has a purpose for everything, and so we just want to help you out. We want to be real with you, and we just want to have these conversations so that they just really get to your heart.
For sure. And it'll be a faith-driven podcast, and I think it's important to establish the purpose of what we're doing, but it's also to understand where we've been, where you guys are at, and what's helped us throughout our development and our process. And sometimes you feel alone, or sometimes you feel like you go through things that other people don't understand, and there are people going through things that you're going through and understand what you've been through.
So here we are to talk about it all together. And so let's go ahead and get started with today's episode. And today's topic that we're talking about is better confidence.
Yes, sir.
Better confidence. We're talking about opening the year here at Mountain City Church. If you're not a part of our church, it's all good. We want to invite you to also just interact. It's a whole community of faith, young people. We got a lot of youth. All sorts of ages, and also a lot of diversity. Because when we're doing this podcast, we're like, there's a lot of people who only speak Spanish. We got to do something for them too.
Maybe we'll add subtitles at some point. We're gonna see how obviously everything develops, but one of the big things about what we have at our church, or at least from my perspective, is that everything is driven with purpose. And we wanted to start this year off, our head pastor, Pastor Mario Rivas, wanted to start off this year with excellence, and excellence is in every area. And I think that translates to having, an excellent level of confidence.
Exactly. So when we talk about excellence, we're talking about just doing better in every area of our life.
Exactly.
And so when we're talking about better, dude, there's a lot of things you can get better at in general. One of the, I guess not arguments, but one of the topics that would get brought up when we're talking about better confidence, better excellence is okay, but if you do things a lot better and with higher quality, but you have a crappy attitude, it's then your attitude needs to be better. You can be better with your talent, but you also need to be better with your attitude. You need to be better with your heart. You need to be better in every area.
Exactly. Or if you're really good at doing something, but you don't have the confidence in yourself doing it, even though you have the ability, the skills, the talent, the purpose for it. If you don't have that level of confidence where it's excellent, it could really just put you stagnant and stop where you're supposed to be.
Exactly. So let's talk about better confidence, because I think when we have better confidence, it's just gonna help us grow in many areas. Because better confidence, confidence in general, is one of those things that is gonna go with you from your childhood to you're older.
And it's important because I think confidence really can give you identity, right? If you're not confident in who you are, or what you believe, or what type of person you want to be, you can get driven down so many different paths.
Yeah, exactly. And so, we've both grown up with different backgrounds. I think Dad, you and I, we have completely different experiences.
Which I think we should maybe mention, right?
Yeah.
I think so you can get the idea of the perspectives. You want to give them your background, and then...
Sure, I'll talk a little bit about my kind of where confidence was formed. I'll be honest, my confidence, I think you don't really think about your confidence until you're somewhere about to finish elementary. You're about to go to middle school, and
you're trying to pick up your outfit for the
exactly.
You're I'm about to start middle school. I want to get my outfit on the bed.
Stuff. Yeah. You're planning about the backpack, and I would get excited about having a superhero backpack when I was in elementary. Then when I go into middle school, I'm I can't be.
I need a Jordan.
I need something different. And I think it's more real like that today. Yeah. And so life just began to change from when you're going from elementary and into middle school. And I think even from middle school to high school, it's you still take it with you. But I remember for me, man, I was a lot more shy. I was a lot more quiet. But that confidence began to really get built up in me when I could find a good role model. Someone I could look up to and be okay, I like their confidence. I need to copy that confidence. And I'll tell a funny story about myself personally. I know it might sound like I'm exposing myself. It's a little bit weird. But for me, my confidence came from watching a TV show in particular. So I would watch Smallville. This was this Superman, but when he was younger, he was a teenager. And so he'd go through high school. And so for me, like if I would watch this main character going through school, I'm like, when I'd go to school, I'd wear this red jacket and a blue shirt, these Superman colors, and I'd be like, okay, like, you know, if I watched the day before an episode where he's just learning a new ability, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna learn how to run faster today or something, bro. I don't know, it was weird, but for me, it was like watching this show, like watching a character, a person with confidence. Yeah, I would try to mimic and like build up that confidence, be like, all right, I'm gonna be this Superman, and I'm talking about more like 5th to 6th grade. Yeah. And then, cause then going to middle school, I'm like, okay, I can't be wearing these superhero colors. I can't, like, I was like, okay, dude, I gotta be
inspired by Superman. If you see any pictures,
I have so many photos. I kid you not.
I would have guessed Spider-Man.
No, it would have, it's Superman. So I'd watch all those shows. But for me, like this character would be invincible. He'd be strong and he would have to like overcome certain things because I'm going to spoil the show. If you've never watched it, that's your fault. It came out like 10 years ago.
If you've never watched it, you won't watch it.
Exactly. But he like learned how to fly till the very end of the season. You're like, Superman, you can't fly like till the very end of the season. And so like every time he would begin to unlock new abilities, but you would see him like struggle with his confidence. And every time he'd be like, okay, no more confident what he was doing. He wanted to go apply for the job. He was talking to the girl and all these sorts of things. And for me, it was like, okay, like I'm gonna go through life and I'm just gonna try to learn new things. I'm gonna, exactly. And if I would see somebody, for me visually, it was a television show. If I would see him try to do new things, for me, I'd challenge myself. And it sounds weird, but it also speaks to kind of like the way society is today. 100%. And the kind of things that people see.
100%. I mean, I personally believe that a lot of people, especially in this age where a lot of kids have phones and you have TikToks and YouTube and music and all that stuff where like you're so influenced by what you see. It's huge. I do want to ask you this though, because when I talk about like giving our context and our background, you grew up as a pastor's kid, right? And how does that play into like, you know, like coming to your faith and having confidence in that as you're going through these types of level ups?
Dude, I'll be real, man. I was ashamed for like since I was in the 4th grade. Not like ashamed, but it was more like embarrassed because they'd be like, "What does your dad do for work?" And I'd be like, "Oh, he's a pastor." And like when we would write things down. And I remember a kid who was like he read it and he was like, "Your dad's a pastor? Like, what does he paste?" Like, I'm like, "No, he's a pastor." And so for me, it was hard to kind of like explain it, and it would become more embarrassing, like for me to try to put into words. Oh, he preaches, he stands in front of people, and we go to church, and that's what he does full time. Yeah. And like for me, that kind of overshadowed me in a way where I was more like, I don't know if people are gonna get where I'm coming from. Yeah. And so to me, it almost felt like I felt like that outcast and also just felt like I didn't fit in because my context was so different. Because my dad would work at the church, and when I was in 6th grade, we was it 6th grade or 5th grade, something like that. We moved into the church building and we live in the church. And when people would ask like, where did I live and all that, it's like, I live in the church, you know, they're like, wait, how is this? And so to me, just being open about my faith. Yeah. It's not that I was embarrassed about my faith. It's just that in the beginning stages, I didn't know how to explain my faith. You lacked
confidence.
I lacked the confidence to explain, like, because I was so young and didn't understand what was actually going on. But that did lead to like being so closed about my faith that when I was older and I had the confidence and I knew and I put my trust in Jesus and I would worship on Sunday, it did like interrupt me from actually just being able to be honest about my faith. Because from a young age, I was so like, I'm not even going to try to explain it. I'm like a pastor's kid. And it was just, I go to church every Sunday and I'm there Monday. I'm also there Wednesday and I'm there Friday. So it's like hard to explain.
And it impacts you, right? And it impacts, and I think that's why it's important when we're talking about something like confidence, because we come from different backgrounds and it's established, but like just because you grew up in Christianity, just because you're a pastor's kid, doesn't mean that you're always going to be 100% confident in yourself until you come to it.
For sure, man.
And I feel like if people are going to be watching this, there's going to be people that are going to just watch that they're out there and they want to maybe find out who God is or learn about confidence. Yeah. Or there's kids that are going to be in church and
been going for a long time.
Yeah, and maybe they lack that same type of confidence. So I think that's important. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think there's a lot of kids, even sometimes now at our church, and this is something I would want to talk to them, is having confidence in your faith and letting that be your own thing, right? Sure. Because it affected you so much that it affected you at school. It affected the way, like,
it carried on till I was in high school, and I finally understood it because other kids I went to church with were so open about it. And they're like, no, I don't celebrate Halloween because I'm Christian. Yeah. And to me, like, to try to explain that as a 3rd grader or 4th grader was so complicated, man. Yeah. But when I was in 9th and 10th grade, and I had a a friend who would go to church with me, and he'd just straight up tell people like, "Oh no, I don't go to school on Halloween because I'm Christian." I'm like, suddenly that gave me a certain level of confidence. Like, oh, I can be
he could do
honest
that.
about it. Like he could just be honest. And
you could do that.
But it's just something that from a young age I just wasn't able to be open about.
But I think that leads to identity, right? Because like in going back to the Superman show, it's like you learning to fly.
Exactly.
Right? Because you slowly start to level up, slowly realize you have the authority, you have the confidence, you can be who you are. That's who you are. You're called to be, and that's why confidence is important.
Exactly.
Because it can contain like the gifts that you have. It contain your purpose.
I think it's interesting. Like I don't know who teaches us confidence, but I think we all have like a role model. I don't know who you saw. Who'd you look up to? Like growing up, like because I don't think we just learn confidence on our own. It's something that gets
I don't know.
shared.
So mine's a little different because you know I kind of come from a tougher background, and my dad was always.
I'm not tough.
No,
I'm just kidding.
No. It's tough is different.
No,
tough.
It's different. Yeah. I'm a whole other. Yeah.
No,
I'm more rough.
Yeah, but yeah, however you want to say it. Yeah. But my dad, he was. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be clown for saying this, but he was an OG. He really technically is an OG, and he grew up in the streets. So he was a boxer, and ever since we were little, he would tell us the stories about how good he was at fighting and how good he all this. But he also had that aggressive side.
Yeah.
But my brother, I think it's probably in my brother because my brother, he's 2 years older than me. But he was naturally always a really good fighter. He was naturally he just naturally kind of had a swagger where he didn't care what people think about him, you know? And then because my dad was like that, passed it to my brother, I felt like I needed to be like that, you know? And I mean, it's a complicated story, but I was pretty innocent throughout elementary school because I lived with my grandparents when I was in Mexico till I was about 5. So separate from my dad and my brother. Yeah. And my brother grew up with my dad. That's important context because my brother's a lot more like my dad than I was. But when my dad finally came and got me, they brought me up to the United States. I was here, and I realized kind of like the difference in the way my grandparents were with my dad and my brother. I had to harden up. So through elementary school, I felt like I was pretty like just an innocent kid, same as you. You know, I loved the Ninja Turtles. Like I loved those little games that you would play on the things. But as I started to get older, and my brother was already more tougher on the edges, I realized I'm like, dang, I'm not tough, you know, I'm not, and I felt like that's kind of what I started to get my confidence through thinking I was tough, which I know is weird. Cause now I'm like, no, dude, it
was like a fake kind of confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
Exactly.
It's like you felt more the pressure
of having to be
I gotta, this is what confidence looks like.
Exactly.
And so if I'm not tough enough, if I don't get into fights, then they're going to say that I don't have confidence.
Exactly.
But
I don't believe him. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's crazy because I mean, there's so many stories and we'll get to them at some points in these podcasts, right? But there's so many stories that kind of forced me to be this person that I'm not. It's not truly who I am, right? And growing up into junior high, at that point, my brother was already starting high school. My brother was fighting in junior high. He was already this tough guy. So I felt like when I went into I had to be this tough kid,
standard,
you know, like that standard of I didn't care what people think and all this. And that affected me, I think, long term because obviously of the wrong decisions I made. But I don't think my real confidence in who I am came until I fully accepted Christ and realized
that's crazy.
You know, just because I don't need to be this tough person. I don't need to be what the world says I am. I don't need to be whatever I listen to or what I'm around. I am who God called me to be.
That's
you know,
so good, dude.
And I really don't think that even up until probably this last year where I'm Christian. Mm-hmm. I believe in God.
That's who I am.
It's who I am. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Exactly.
And then your definition of confidence just changed. And
it shifted.
It's no longer about how many fights can I get into. It's not about how much money I can make. It's not about just everything that the world tells us that this is what confidence looks like. Suddenly, your definition when you come to Christ is confidence is about just knowing who you are in Christ.
Exactly. And I think that's important because there's a lot of people, and I think the big thing that I would say is a lot of people lack confidence and identity. I think confidence and identity go hand in hand.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and if you're not confident in who you are, you're going to be whoever they tell you to be.
Yeah.
You know, sure. and that transpires in what you listen to music, what kind of videos you're watching, you know, and then you're like, suddenly we have a bunch of kids that are carrying guns around because they listened to Pop Smoke once. You know what I mean? Sure. So like you live in the suburbs, you know, you don't have to be what the music is. You don't have to be what society thinks is cool. You don't have to dress a certain way. I mean, if you like it, wear it. If you don't. You don't have to be what everybody else tells you.
Pressure. So I'll ask you, man, personally, did you ever feel like this pressure, this overshadow from your brother and your dad was defining what confidence was to you? Like, did you ever feel like they were actually pushing you?
100%.
Or was it more just what you saw at a distance, or are there anything like personally that
100%? Just because, and I think that's why I asked you that question about like how being a pastor could affect you, right? For that same perspective is 100%. Like there was times like my dad obviously taught us to box and all that stuff, but if I'll give you a quick story, and this one was kind of like it's a personal one. It's very deep. I used to never fight when I was back in Mexico, and I was very kind-hearted. And around the time I was like 8 is when we moved to Utah, and at this point my brother's 10, and he's already grown up, kind of learning how to squabble, learning how to do all that stuff. And we were at this park, I remember, because it was in the trailer park in Tula, and my brother got into a fight. And the way I grew up in Mexico with my grandparents were like, no, like they were Christians, they were like good people. So I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I walked home and I was proud, like, yeah, I avoided conflict. And my brother came home later, and when my dad came home, and my brother told my dad that he got into a fight, and he asked me, he said, what did you do? And I said, well, I didn't want to fight because that's just not what I was, you know? And he beat me, dude. Like he straight up, like, I know maybe this isn't something to put in there, but
no, it's real, man.
But he beat me for not getting into a fight, you know. And I remember that impacted me so much. Like I still remember it so vividly, and this is why it's important, like because that impacted me so much. From that moment, I just knew that like if there was conflict, I had to face it, like fight it. You know what I mean?
It literally changed your definition of confidence, because you were feeling so confident
that
you didn't fight. You're like, dude, my grandma, my grandpa taught me I'm not supposed to get into fights. And so when in that situation, you felt so good, so confident, and you were so confident in who you were.
I was happy. I walked home. Like,
and
I
then
was
your
like,
dad is like so mad at you because you wanted to switch your definition of confidence into something else. And so I think we just talk about now just the superficialness of this world in general.
Exactly.
Because in general, you can have confidence, but you can have your confidence on the wrong things.
Yeah, or somebody can switch your confidence just like that. I never even thought about it like in that perspective where it was a confidence.
Because you were
switch.
Confident. Yeah, I think you were more confident before that experience where your dad hurt you. You were more confident before that, and then after that, your definition of confidence changed, but you weren't confident. You weren't feeling confident because you're like, now I have to do this and that.
It's crazy you said, because I remember the first time I really ever got in a fight after, like during I started to tear up and like, or like I would get like emotional, you know? So it's like I had to completely like harden up because I was like, this isn't tough. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? So it's crazy that you said, because I think that translates to like a lot of people, right? Like if you think about it, society and social media and the world's always going to want you to switch your confidence, or is always going to try to convince you of what confidence is.
Give you a definition,
yeah.
And that it's all physical appearance, and that it's all like, I grew up really confident in, like, besides just me being shy and quiet, once I was confident in my faith, I learned how to say no to things. I learned how to, because I was so confident in my faith, and this is now at this point more like in my high school years, you know, you need a certain confidence to tell your friends, no, I don't want to go to that party that you're inviting me to.
Yeah.
Or, no, I don't want to smoke weed. I know you're all doing it over here and you're meeting that day, or you guys are out drinking. And I think it does require a certain confidence to be able to say, 100%. I don't want that.
No, 100%. I think if you're not, and again, the back to confidence leads to identity. If you're not confident in your faith, if you're not confident in who you are, then you're always going to, again, the second that something shakes it, you're going to fold, you're going to crumble under pressure, and you're going to do that, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy because, I mean, I've been going to church solid 3 years now. 3 years, 3 years at the beginning of this year, which is crazy. But it took me probably a year before I was like fully like no, standing my ground. I'm Christian, you know,
like you just let anything pull you.
Exactly. Like I would go to like my friend's son's birthday party or something, and this was like early on. I remember because this was early on, and he would like hand me a beer, and I'd like take it, but being like, I know I shouldn't do this, but you know what I'm saying?
but you're like, but I also don't want to make him think that I'm not manly, you know, because I'm like, no,
I'm not still your friend because you know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Now at like work, I'm like, open, I got church today after, Thursday.
Sure.
Oh yeah, we got to do this for church, so
but it did take a while. And yeah, I remember being surrounded by some people in my youth, and that was like, they weren't the best influences for me, but I remember when a certain interaction I had one time, I was hanging out with some people that I knew were not good for me, but I was like, nah, I'm Christian, and this isn't going to affect me. And I eventually learned to say no before it ever did affect me.
That's good.
But I remember we were in the living room with some friends, and to them, drinking and vaping was like the norm, just vaping all the time. And so it was like, hey man, come on, like just here you go, like we're passing around, like here. I'm like, nah man, like I'm good, thank you. And it's like, dude, come on, like to the point of peer pressure. And I know peer pressure is the hardest thing for you to be like, no. And I was like, nah, I'm good, man. That's just not part of who I am.
That's awesome.
So I was confident in my identity, and I was able to say no. And at the end of the day, they were like, dude, I respect that. He's like, it's so hard to actually meet people who don't cuss, who don't drink, who don't smoke. Because it's like anybody now does it under peer pressure, and when you don't fold under peer pressure, it's like it's like worthy of respect. Like,
and that's crazy too. Because I mean, something that I take away from that story, and I think people maybe should take away, is just because you're Christian doesn't mean you can't be around.
Yeah.
We're not saying like don't hang around people that are like that, or
for sure.
Obviously, be aware of your surroundings. I always think like, if there's 4 alcoholics, you're probably going to be the 5th, right?
Like, be smart about who you're surrounding yourself with.
For sure, but it doesn't mean that like you're just rejecting these people. Like I still have friends that that'll drink when for kids' birthday parties and things like that.
But you don't hang out with them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's like you learn how to.
We still love them, and all that. But I think the key to that is like you were in an environment that was around, but your confidence kept you true to who you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because there's gonna be a lot of times where maybe you're someone that's new to faith, or maybe you've been in faith, or maybe you're out there and you don't want to do what everybody else is doing, but because of what's being passed around, you're pushed onto you, you fold to it. And if that's not who you are, you shouldn't do it.
For sure.
And if you have that level of confidence where you're like, I'm not going to do that, it can not only like keep you safe, but inspire.
Yeah,
I'm sure those kids around you felt inspired.
They were like, okay, so I guess not everybody here this age has to be smoking and drinking. And it's like, it changes people's mindset and mentality. It's like, you can be a person that just stands their ground and is sure, and they hang out with these people, and you don't have to be like those people.
It just takes time. And I think that's important too with like confidence is like, there's always going to be moments where like you're weak and like, or I still have it now sometimes, where like I'll give a word and then after I'm like, that wasn't super good, and like you always try to obviously be the best version of yourself, but confidence is something that's always going to be developed. Yeah. When you learn a new trait or a new skill or whatever, you're not confident right away.
Always just going to be challenged every time with your confidence, and just because you're getting older doesn't mean that you're going to your confidence is always going to be the best and better. On the contrary, new worries and new doubts, like you are with your second child, and it's like a second child. Your first child, you had a certain confidence, but now you had 2, and now you need a different kind of confidence, and then you need a different kind of confidence with your third, and it's like
the experiences with the first give you confidence with the second.
Yes, and it's so it asks for a different kind of confidence. But it helps you, grow in that experience.
100%.
So I'll ask, man, what gives you confidence now in your faith? What are those things that keep you like, man, this is what helps me be confident? Why are you confident in your faith?
Why am I so confident in my faith? I like that. Honestly, I think it's just because it saved me, and I remember the exact moment, because like I knew about God because my grandparents, like I said, my mom was very Christian. My dad was like the polar opposite. So I've always had this distorted idea of it, but my mom always talked to me about it. Went to church a couple of times as a kid. So I knew who God was. But I didn't know God. Right? I think that's the best way to say it. And I was like 21 or 21, and I had my apartment. And I was in so much. It was like so bad. Like I was living so much in the world. I was smoking and drinking every day pretty much, partying every weekend, doing all the stuff that the world tells you is cool, right? But I was so depressed, man. And I had financial issues. Like I had issues with my parents. I had issues with just every aspect of my life. It just felt like I was drowning. I was just drowning. It just felt like there was no hope, and I felt like I was lost. Like, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I was going. My life kind of just felt like meaningless, right? And I remember I had this breakdown, and like I went into it. So I had a roommate, and my room had its own bathroom, and in the bathroom I had a closet. I shut my door, shut the bathroom door, slept into the closet, shut that door. So I shut all the doors, and I just started to cry. And I remember, because I told God, I was like, God, if you take me out of this, like if you take me out of this, if you help me be better, if you help me with, like, I just cried and just talked to him. Like, I really, really just talked to him, where I like let it out, you know? I said, help me get out of this, and I will like follow you. I'll dedicate myself to learning about you and, like, you know, becoming Christian. And I moved back home shortly after. And from that moment, I mean, I'm like, I'm going to see what this is. And since then, I mean, it's been over 3 years now. Technically,
that's awesome, man.
About 3 years, a little over 3 years now, but and everything's changed. I mean, my relationship with my parents is amazing. My relationship with God is, honestly, I always want it to be better, but it's the best it's ever been. My finances are better. I'm blessed with a house now. I have my family. I have my job, and even when things are hard, they always end up better at the end, you know. And it's, I can only give that to God.
The goodness of God,
yeah,
gives you confidence.
Yeah, right? Just the goodness of him over my life, because of where I was, and where I was without him, and where he brought me, and now I'm there with him.
Yeah, and just like everything like that we go through in life, that at the end of the day you're like, I could have been a lot more worse, but I'm here where God wants me to be. God blesses me, and God gives me this opportunity, and that's. And I think
cool. Development, you know, and you met me obviously early on, and.
I met you when we were 17.
Yeah.
But it was like brief, just get to meet him. But I remember meeting a David who was so young and so fired up with like, oh, dude, I want this. And I want a circle. I don't even know if Dave really remembers well. But it was like, for me, it was this spark I saw in David. He's like, I just want to be involved with this, and I want to know more about it. But there was so many limitations in him that just like, kept him from being able to actually see it, because maybe you lived in so far from us, and you didn't have the right circle. But you were like, when you saw us, I remember when you met us, me and some people from church, you're like, dude,
there's other Christian youth. Yeah. That's early on too. It's funny because my mom is, I think parents' prayers save us sometimes. Dude.
For sure.
Parents and grandparents.
Definitely.
And my mom always did pray for me to go to church and to do all that stuff. And there was a phase where I did want to, but because there was nobody around to like,
that influence and just support.
Because when you lack confidence and you lack identity, I'm telling you just become whatever's around you. You know, exactly. And if you're not around something that inspires you to be better, you just become whatever that is, you know. And
so like, you might have the desire of like, I want to be confident in Christ, and I want to find a church that I can just openly feel like it's okay to lift my hands and worship God. And I think the honest truth about that is that we got to run from the places that are going to steal that opportunity from us. And we got to run to the places where we know we can find, you know, that peace and that comfort.
And I think that's part of what this purpose of this podcast is like, there's people that are like you know, and that have gone through things that you might have gone through, or maybe we haven't, but you want to be with people that'll support you through it, that'll love you through it, that'll really help inspire you to be better. And that's what we want to do with this. That's what we want to do at Mountain City Church. Our pastor always says, after God, the people are the most important.
And it's because it's honestly true. The way God calls us to serve him is by serving others.
Exactly.
And so we just want to, like, to everybody who's listening, whoever's listening, they're hearing weird noises in the basement because we have guests. The basement's unfinished. But hopefully, pulling back into it, we just hope we can help you. And we can help you be confident. Like I mentioned, that one friend of mine who just openly said, oh, I don't go to school on Halloween because I'm Christian. That gave me such a boost of confidence. And then I started seeing things, and I started saying things for myself. I don't do this because I'm Christian. And I don't do that. And everything that, like, all these stereotypes are like, oh, you don't do this because you're Christian. I started like embrace it. I'm like, yeah, it's true. I don't do that because I'm Christian. And I had to break past that, and I had to take courage and be like, I'm not going to let my life be defined by however this world wants to define it. I love that. If God's got something ahead for me, then I'm just going to stand firm on what he has for me. And I'm not going to let people try to decide what they want to give me. Or
and on to the flip side, or if you're new to it, like how I said it was for me, I mean, I used to not want to raise my hands or pray or do things like that because I thought it wasn't cool. It wasn't tough. It wasn't all this, you know, until I really came to realize like, no, this is who I am. I worship a God that deserves it. And if you're new to it, you know, sometimes you're afraid to like say, I believe in God, or you're afraid to go to a church because what others might think, or maybe you've sinned and you don't want to go to church because you feel like you're a sinner and they're going to judge you. Like, no, like it's not.
No, also just like putting into perspective kind of what you were saying, that pressure from your brother and your dad, you could satisfy them by measuring up to their level of confidence, or you could stand before God, lift your hands, and with all your confidence, just choose to trust Him. Yeah. And it's like you can choose to either satisfy a person or satisfy God. And I'm like, for me, my whole life, I've learned that it's just better to do things for God than to do things for other people.
100%.
And the blessings come through that.
100%. So in whatever perspective you're going through, whatever it is, in any aspect of your life, maybe it's with faith, maybe it's not with faith, maybe it's just with identity, having confidence in who you are is going to lead you to so many different doors. And it's going to allow you to stay away from certain things.
For sure.
And if it is based in Christ, have confidence in being Christian. In this world that's going to tell you that what you believe in or what you follow is wrong, stand firm to who you are. You know, what does the Bible say? We're going to be something because of His name. I can't remember the exact verse, but
we'll have to pull that verse.
Yeah, we'll have to pull that verse. But because we worship Him and because we follow Him, people are going to say stuff about us, and people are going to say things about the Bible or about who God is. But don't let that shake your confidence. Don't let that shake your identity in Christ.
Yeah.
Because you're not this world.
Yeah, so we'll share some final thoughts because we're gonna wrap this up. But one other thought I had, and then I'll let you do one final one if you have. But it's like, just know it's not worth it. It's not worth trying to measure up to another person's level and definition of confidence. Yeah, it's not worth it. The things that you think are important and matter to you now, the day of tomorrow, they're not gonna be there. And it's like, it's not worth sacrificing and losing all the opportunities that God has for you just because you don't want people to look at you weird, and just because you don't want people to reject you, or just because you're trying to fit in with a certain group of people. It's not worth all that trouble. It's like, it's a whole better life to just be confident in knowing that God has you where He wants to put you, and He's got steps like already ordered ahead of you, and where He's taking you, it's going to be a whole lot better than anything or anywhere we could take ourselves to.
Than anything that this world will offer.
Exactly.
And I think with my final conclusion, I would just think, if you lack that confidence, you're going to lack identity. And I know I've said that a lot of times, but if you lack identity, you're going to be with whatever anybody else tells you to be. But every single person that's watching, every single person out in this world has a purpose, and that purpose is found in Christ. And you won't ever really experience your true fulfillment until you're living in His purpose. Because not until I realized what my calling was, what my purpose is, did I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, and I'm happy. And you're going to go through situations that are going to be tough, but because you have confidence in who you worship, have confidence in who you believe, you have the identity of a Christian, of a Christ believer, and it'll reflect in your life. So. Exactly.
So thanks for listening to Sermon on the Mount. We'll see you guys on our next episode, and we hope that this was useful and helpful. If this was, write it in the comments. We'll see you guys in our next episode.
If you guys heard any of the sounds, write it in the comment.
Let us know. See you next time.
Thank you guys.